Yeah, well, let me know when you're ready to start.
Yeah, yeah, I already got the stream booted up. So in
Okay.
general, so I guess a little catch up. So how to go today over at work for you?
Uh, that's pretty cool, man. I've been running into a lot of people that like that recognize me from the previous gun shop I work at, and they're like, "What's up, man?" And they're like, "How you been?" I was like, "Good, man." You're like, and honestly, like, I got no shame in the game. Like, I like working at Academy so far. It's like I said, like I don't like working at the gun counter just because it's just like you see some stupid ass shit. Like you get some really dumb questions, and it's just like, man, I don't have the tolerance for it, and I'm just gonna stick to the fishing department where it's just like me learning about, me talking with guys like who are going offshore fishing. That's a new area for me. So I've been running into a couple of my like former guys. It's been good. Yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's definitely pretty tedious in terms of like their corporate structure, but it's pretty good. How about you? How'd you work today?
Oh, it was long. It was really long, but I managed to get through it. Your boy got tipped $20 for full auto for a VIP member.
Ooh,
So I was early in there for like 10 minutes. So it was pretty good.
what did
Um,
they shoot?
uh, LWRC PDW. It's an 8-inch AR,
Okay.
and then we have a original 1928 Chicago Thompson.
Oh yeah, dude. Like with the wood forward grip.
Yeah, exactly that.
I've
That
shot those before.
dude, that sucker still works.
Mhm.
Almost
Oh.
100 years, it still works. However, with full auto though, you literally cannot let go of the trigger, otherwise it will get jammed. That's just how
Well,
that gun is. Like,
it's an open bolt
yeah,
design, right?
yeah, yeah, it is.
Yeah, that's what I like about those old open bolts. Like my favorite machine gun out of all the machine guns that I've shot, it has to be a Sten. They're just like it's like a welded piece of like steel with like a basically like a PVC pipe with gun that shoots.
Yeah,
But I mean like that's freaking awesome, man. Like that thing, like when you pull the trigger, you just see that bolt like just slide forward, and zoom, dun, 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 dun. Pretty sweet.
yeah, that and like the grease guns. Remember that?
Oh, dude, I love the grease one. So
Yeah.
my dad told me when I was growing up, then when he was a contractor in Vietnam, he carried a grease gun and a 1911 on his that like that's what he carried wherever he went. And I'm like, how did you do it? I mean, you were a contractor. It's like, well, yeah, but I mean, there were no regulations back then. Like now, contractors can't even be near guns unless like you're a PMC. But well, my dad was a radio technician and said carried Tom a grease gun and a 1911.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think I think now if you were to do like any sort of like license security in the state, you need to have I think a minimum a level 3 license for you to carry an actual firearm on your person.
Yeah.
A lot
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
my
Like.
coworkers who are also instructors, are actually level 4 licensed security officers in the state. So
Really?
they can do the whole shebang, dude.
Hmm. I wonder what it takes like to be like a personal like a private security like like a like a bodyguard pretty much.
They're believe me, they're always on the prowl for like a rich old lady who became like a widow. Like they're always on the prowl for like one of those types of jobs where literally they just walk around with her to like the mall and they just kind of like watch like her like house. Like they're always on the prowl for those types of jobs because those are literally the easiest types of jobs with the best pay.
Mhm. Yeah.
So,
Well, so I remember one time I ran into this HPD guy. He was doing a private security gig at like this. This was around 2015. There were a bunch of layoffs, and this guy came in and he was looking for like kind of like a concealed carry holster for his duty weapon, and he said that he's kind of doing a plainclothes gig at some oil company because these people had been getting death threats about like all the layoffs and stuff. and homeboy was just sitting there in the office, and he was just plain clothes. But he said some of the executives, like BP, like they have like HPD officers or off-duty officers chilling out like in their back, like in their front yards. But you know, that'd be
Yeah,
pretty sweet.
I can believe that because even still, like, so recently from all the riots and stuff, actually, my job actually, they hired a licensed security officer to just kind of sit in his vehicle inside of our parking lot that was gated and
Hmm.
just basically sit in the parking lot and just try to see if anyone would attempt to basically try to break in basically during all the riots going on past
Yeah.
back in like early June. So
Hmm.
um, basically all he did was just sit in his truck from like 8:30 in the evening till like 7 a.m. So he literally got
That
paid almost almost 12 hours, and I don't
yeah.
know what his rate was. So
Honestly, dude, like I can see how that can be appealing, but dude, like you can't like that's just like it's dead, man. Like you're just
yeah,
there.
you gotta have some form of entertainment for sure. Like you gotta bring like your phone or something, or bring in like some like
Yeah.
Topo Chico or some like Pellegrino.
Mm, dude, I freaking love Topo. Like I drink that so bad. I should probably stop, dude. But I bought a case of Monsters, the white ones, the no sugar ones. I bought a case of a 24 pack off Amazon for $27, which is basically like $1.20 at Amazon, $1.20 a Monster. But I chug those at work, because it sucks.
Yeah, you probably down one today too, huh?
I down two today. One on my way to work, and then one during my lunch. So not so good. But honestly,
Yeah,
they don't make me jittery. It's just like they just taste good, man. But I know
yeah,
like it's zero sugar, but still, it's not good for you.
yeah. Some of those monsters be hitting in the right places for sure,
Yeah,
but it's definitely not good for you. I know that for like all that stuff.
yeah, yeah. And I had a coworker. He would drink about like four of them a day, and like that
Oh,
guy
dude,
was
that's not good for
well. So he had just come back from Afghanistan, and he was like literally he was working at the gun shop with me, the previous one I worked at, and his grandfather was like a retired HPD officer. He would spend a ton of money there, and he told the manager, I was like, "Hey, my grandson just coming back from Afghanistan. You think you could, help him out?" I was like, "Yeah, yeah, sure." Really cool dude, super cool dude. He would drink like four of those a day. It was ridiculous, and he was constantly dipping and smoking.
you. Yeah, I can see that.
But so the riots, man. Um,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on that? Like, well, let's put some context in it. What do you think? What are your thoughts on the whole George Floyd incident?
No, it was very, very, very unfortunate. Um, I mean, all of us have saw the video. I mean, and if we haven't seen the video, we've seen definitely just like tidbits of it, the most important bits, basically. Um,
Mhm.
like I remember early on, whenever it first went down, like I was just on Twitter, just chilling. I think I was on like my lunch, right? And
Yeah.
and then like before I know it, like I'm seeing like videos and then like tweets of people like reporting like protesters are
Mhm.
outside this cop's house and this cop literally can't get food delivered to his front door because the protesters are like smashing his like Uber that like drops off the food.
Yeah.
So I remember reading that and then kind of dig more into it and realize exactly what happened. Like, damn. And it definitely could have gone in 100 different more directions, but it had to
Mhm.
go in one certain direction. That's why we are at where we are right now. So,
Yeah.
and I mean, obviously, the protests. I mean, they have their own right in terms of being able to put out, a message about how things should be. but at the same time too, like you were joking with me, just text me like we should like holster up and just go downtown and just
Right.
freaking just mess around up there, dude. But I mean, honestly, we probably well, I would have gotten away with it for sure.
Hmm.
But but in terms of where they were at, like where were they at downtown? Do you know?
So, like, yeah, like I think they marched to City Hall.
Yeah.
So, it started out somewhere, and they basically just marched to City Hall. It was like 60,000 people marching. It really wasn't an incident. Um, I mean, like, honestly, it's a lot to unwind and a lot to talk about. I know we're kind of late to the game talking about it, but I mean, this is still going on, man. Like, um, regardless of what your opinion on it is about George Floyd, dude, it doesn't matter. I don't care if the guy was selling weed. I don't care if he was breaking the law. It just goes to show how cops are acting these days. How cops are just, they're so on edge with their job that they're basically going to just powerhouse this guy, put their knee on his neck, and just, you know,
Put all their weight on him, right?
hmm yeah,
Yeah.
and believe me, dude, like I've had all these bootlickers say, well, if he would have complied, I was like, dude, it doesn't matter, like he was
I
on the
believe he
ground.
did, didn't he?
Yeah,
I mean, like the whole the whole commotion was about him paying with a counterfeit bill. It was
yeah,
$20. Like,
hmm
dude,
and for that
literally,
they killed him.
literally, do you like not have that like magic marker? Like do you know that marker that they use to see if 50s
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah,
or
counterfeit
hundreds
marker.
are like basically real? They just have those magic markers. If it comes out gold, it's good to go. But if it's black, it's fake. I mean,
Yeah,
why don't you have at least one of those if you run a gas station?
right. But that's the thing, dude. Like you had freaking Eric Gardner selling loose cigarettes on the street, and guess what? The police escalated to the fact that they choked him out to death. So like, put aside the issue of race for a second. Let's not talk about the issue of the black community and police. I mean, my question is, how do we get here as a country where the police are going to choke a man to death for selling loose cigarettes, for having a fake $20 bill? What does it say about police in this country? You give them 6 months of of training at an academy, and they basically have the power of God strapped to their hip, and Lord help you if you don't comply um with their commands. It's like, dude, I think that when we need to we need to reevaluate how we are training police. Like I mean, like, look, I'm not gonna take it to the extremes and say that all cops are bad, but I'm thinking that, like, come on, man. Like, I was talking to my barber, dude. My barber had to put like 3,000 hours of like uh he had to put like 3,000 hours of just cutting hair to get a freaking barber's license, man.
Yeah.
Like you go to a cop, 6 months. Dude, I can't tell you, and you know this, man. Working at a range, working around guns, you have seen some very negligent behavior that cops have done.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Uh,
Oh yeah.
dude, I've had cops draw their like. I had this one cop. We were talking about the Safari Land ALS holster system. Homeboy draws his weapon in the freaking store. And it's like, dude, why? I just wanted to know how you like it, not how quick it is to draw. So, I mean, it's like, come on, man, like, let's reevaluate, like, what we're training police officers with. They say, well, I feared for my life and I had to react. I was like, dude, I'm calling you to respond to an emergency. Of course, you're putting your life on the line, but Jesus, man, you see a black guy walking down the street, are you automatically afraid that he's gonna pull a gun on you? You know? But
Oh yeah.
I don't know.
But I mean yeah, you are right though essentially about so basically um so I know this too recently because my mother works in she is a licensed cosmetologist by the state Basically, even like right now, so she's been bugging the hell out of me about wanting to basically she needs my help basically renewing her license, and she has to basically
Mhm.
take 4 hours of training that's
Right.
required and mandated by the state. So we got her squared away on that. I mean, it's like a $15 class. It's like no big deal, but she still has to basically do X amount of training to be able to have her license renewed, right? I mean, and you're right though about so like for example like being in a police academy for like 6 months.
Mhm.
Like, why is it 6 months?
Right.
Why isn't it like 12 months? Or even, I mean,
Mhm.
hell, I mean, in some cases, if you exceed expectations and you basically, you pass all these like fitness programs, like flying colors over there, right? I don't know what the hell they're called, but I mean, I would
Mhm.
assume that they would be called like something like around like an actual fitness exam, right? And if you basically you outshoot everyone, you can freaking outshoot your freaking duty carry like Glock 19 or Glock 17. Freaking
Mhm.
if they want you to do like some other like boog shit, like freaking being like SWAT. I know. Do you remember what it was for HPD SWAT? The amount of training that they had to do.
Um. So I mean, I know that the HPD SWAT is no, I wouldn't know, and I think that's uh, so like you obviously have to pass the minimum. You have to be an officer for 2 years
Okay.
before you have to be patrol for 2 years, and then from there you jump on to you know um, narcotics, any other thing that you want to focus on. But for something like SWAT, you really have to put in your time.
Yeah.
You really have to put in your time. Make sure you have a clean record, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, but think about it this way: like, why don't it's like the military? Why I think that we should move less from having a huge standing army, and why not move more towards small unit tactics? Like have a dedicated standby, group of guys. So kind of like what John Kennedy wanted to do. He was a proponent for special warfare. So my opinion is the same thing. It's like let's have a group of guys who their job is to just basically train, and respond to calls. But that's not possible. You know. Um, I was talking with this one guy. He was telling me that some police departments are um, basically paying you to work out at their gym. So like they'll have like a gym inside the police station, and they'll pay you to go work out there. I think that's great. I think that's great that
Yeah.
they should incentivize training. Like you want to go, you know, you want to go learn about new tactics. Pay for that. Make it an
Exactly.
incentive to learn because I think I I don't know where to stand on this because I think there are a lot of cops out there that are. Like I said, I think I'm kind of in the middle, but I definitely think that there are some cops that they really need to reevaluate what they're doing. Um, but I definitely think that we should have some sort of incentive to train more, and the standards need to be higher than a high school diploma. Like I'm sorry, dude. Like
Yeah.
the fact that like HPD, you can go to HPD with 48 hours of community college and a 2.0 GPA. Come on, man. Like that's
That.
that's low level stuff,
Yeah.
man.
That's bottom of the barrel kind of stuff right there.
That
Exactly.
that really is, man. Like that really is. Like I mean, here's a good example. Like if you look at the state troopers, look at their performance record at state troopers. Texas state troopers, you're required to have a bachelor's degree or 4 years of military service. You actually have a weight limit. You have to fit a certain weight limit, and this was a couple of months back before the whole Rona thing happened. There was a big thing going around that they wanted a certain height to waist ratio. So like if you were a certain height, your waistline could not exceed that certain limit. So it's like their state troopers are super well trained, and the reason being is that these guys go to Austin and they live there for 6 months in those barracks, and that's
Yeah.
all they do. So it's almost as if they go to boot camp, you know.
Yeah.
So state troopers, man, they're insane. I think state troopers, they do a pretty good job. Um,
They do,
and they're real chill.
but don't forget, honestly, dude, literally, I've been pulled over once, gotten a ticket.
Mhm.
It was by a state trooper. Literally, I've done the same thing in front of like Harris County Sheriff, constables, HPD. They literally don't throw up the lights for me, but a state trooper, dude, they'll throw them up faster than you can blink.
Dude, seriously, they do not give you a break though.
No, they don't.
I was coming back from Austin. I was on the 290, and it was like 2 in the morning. I had gone to the Beto O'Rourke rally to go see Willie Nelson, and it was like 2 in the morning, and I was going 76, and they pulled me over. State trooper pulled me over because at that hour they got nothing to do, man.
Yeah,
So they're looking for stuff, and like, dude, growing up in the valley, state troopers are everywhere. They're pulling people over for the slightest things just because they're looking for drugs. You
sure.
know? But I mean, the riots, dude. There's always going to be people that take advantage of the situation, and they're gonna want to, loot. They're gonna want to destroy things just because that's just the nature of people, man.
Yeah,
Like, you give somebody the ability to burn and stuff like that, and they're gonna do it, man. Like, if you look at like 1992, the 1992, the Rodney King riots. There's a great documentary on Netflix called 92 Fire or LA Burning, something like that. Um, you have a random dude, like some random kid, who's just burning. He literally is just burning a palm tree because he wanted to do it. And I think what people are getting confused is they think that they are they are they are lumping rioters and protesters together, and that's not true. Does it look good? No. But honestly, dude, if I was in a situation to where I could break into a store and steal some Nikes or get some stuff away, like you gotta ask yourself, dude, if you were in a position to where you could get away with something, would you do it? Would you not do it?
yeah. And honestly, I think that comes down to a little bit of morals, right?
Yeah.
I mean, more so, like, obviously, parents will tell you, well, if it's not yours and if you didn't pay for it, then you stealing, you can't steal this and that. I mean, it's one of the 10 Commandments, right? Thou shalt not steal.
Mhm.
And now what we see is again we see people basically like even so like I saw I think it was a video like rioters in New York, literally just some
Mhm.
guy just wearing like a balaclava and a hoodie. He literally just pulls out this like crowbar and he starts just smashing these windows in front of like a Chanel on like Fifth Avenue, right? So
Mhm.
I mean we have to recognize what those people are, but then we also need to
Yeah.
recognize who people who are literally just holding a sign with a message that they just want unity, recognize that they are protesters, right? There
Mhm.
is there is a difference, right? It's kind of like how it goes where people are like, "Yeah, my clip holds 15 rounds." It's a
Mhm.
magazine. No, it's a clip. It's a magazine. No, no, it's a clip. It's a magazine. Like
Mhm.
literally that's how I kind of view it in a sense, right? It's like you have people who are like, "Oh, they're rioters." But it's a
No, they're
magazine.
looters.
And then like,
Yeah.
"Oh, they're protesters." It's a clip. Like literally like both sides are literally getting it mixed, right? It's literally like they're basically kind of like approaching it kind of like cross-eyed, right? Like literally
Mhm.
their eyes are just crossed over and like wherever protester is, it's where like rioters are. Whenever rioters are, it's protesters, right? And it's from
Yeah.
both sides, right? Like we see people on
Mhm.
the right, they're like, oh my god, these rioters. And then we have people from the left, they're like, oh my god, these protesters, right? And they're literally putting the same group of people in the same category, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that's where we need to kind of have some clarity on what exactly is the difference between the two. And I
Yeah.
promise you, Ray, I promise you. So I need to check if I have any one of my classes that are one of the hybrid classes at the U of H, but I promise you, dude, if I'm walking on campus, I would be shocked if I didn't walk past the freaking library and saw people holding signs freaking protesting about police brutality in Georgia.
Mhm.
And those people are protesters. You and I both know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But
Or like the abortion people.
we need to talk about that guy on one episode, dude. Dude,
Oh my
we
god,
should do
that
that
guy, like
next.
that.
We should do
That
that
guy's
next.
hilarious.
We should.
Yeah, for sure. He's like abortion, abortion, or
Dude,
like homosexuals. You're going to hell. Like then you have like the one passionate gay guy trying to argue with him. Like seriously, I saw this thing go down one time, and this guy was like, "You homosexuals are gonna burn in hell." And this one gay guy was like giving the most passionate speech about how it's like freedom of speech and love and yada yada yada. I was like yelling, I was yelling at them, just kiss him already. Somebody kiss him already. And then I was like yelling, like, dude, punch him in the face, punch him in the face. I was like, you have to realize, you're like, seriously, dude, like these guys are just wasting their time, man. You know, it's like
dude, they really are. It's so sad. Like
honestly, no, go ahead.
like like literally like homeboy, dude, homie, dude, last year he was literally standing in the August and early September heat for like 2 hours, and dude, this man looked freaking cherry red, my dude.
Yeah.
He looked cherry red, and here he was just shouting Bible verses at the top of his lungs, dude. Like
Well, what does that
honestly,
accomplish?
dude, honestly, dude, you tell me. But friggin', honestly, if I had a friend walking by me, so like you for example, if like you and I were just walking to like the same place, dude, I would yell to the top of my lungs. I'd be like, well, like I got dilly-dillied on Saturday night because my mom said Sundays for church or some bullshit, right? Just come up with something
Yeah.
like really kind of like aha, got him, you know,
Well, so I
because
took a picture with this one guy. He's like, he had a sign that said, "Ask me why you're going to hell." I'm like, bro, I've been on mission trips to Africa, man. Like, not the best person, but I definitely think I'm gonna go to heaven. You know?
yeah, I mean that's how I mean basically everyone though thinks like that though, right?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, those guys are whack. But what's sad is like, if you walk a couple hundred yards, to the religion center, the A.D. Bruce Religion
Yeah, yeah,
Center, you have every Wednesday they have free lunch that churches from all over Houston will provide. And you know what
yes.
what they do? They provide free lunch, and they provide a vegetarian option for people who are Hindu, Sikh, or Muslim that don't want to eat anything with pork.
And they probably have a
And they
kosher
provide
option for the Jewish people,
Ab-
right?
absolutely, and
Yeah.
that's the thing. Like those guys it's always the loudest who get the most opinion, or the loudest with the most opinion always get the most attention. So you have those people that on their days off or take time off from work or who are retired that go out there and they're feeding students and they're just like genuinely just feeding people.
Yeah.
Nobody cares about them. Nobody takes the time of day to give them attention. But the guy who's out there screaming at the top of his lungs, "Oh, you're going to hell for being gay," like that's the guy that people see as Christians, and like that's not right, man.
Yeah. So
It's
that's a completely different subject though, for sure.
well, it's the same thing with like mass shooters and gun owners,
Exactly. Yes.
like it's the hypocrisy.
It
Like
really is. Yes.
we're gun owners because we care about our family, we care about our personal liberties, and does that mean that we are mass shooters? Absolutely not.
Exactly. Yes.
You know,
100%. That's a
and
really
I think what
really good comparison actually.
well, thank you, sir, thank you. And I really think what people don't realize is like the diversity of the gun culture.
Yes.
Like from the '90s, bro, rooftop Koreans, the OGs of the gun world, rooftop Koreans, man.
Dude, friggin' like just to kind of prove that point. So just to kind of prove, the diversity of actual gun ownership, right? So let me go ahead and go over a few people. So my fellow instructors, my coworkers. So
Hmm.
One of them, she's she's white and she's a woman. She's one of
Mhm.
the instructors at where I work.
Oh, she shoots 3-gun competitions, right?
No, I think you have. I think you're confused with someone else.
Okay, then never mind.
My training manager, he's Hispanic. My assistant training manager, he's also Hispanic. My other coworker, who isn't the woman, he's black. He basically attended the stage class with me.
Mhm.
And then my other coworker, he's Vietnamese. So
Mhm.
literally, we're literally almost across the spectrum. All we need is
Yeah.
some like, all we need is some like friggin' like Viking to be like a instructor, and then we pretty much just have the whole entire spectrum covered.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
and that's the thing. I think we have that the thing that Houston is the most diverse city in the world, in the
hmm
nation.
yes.
Like the gun shops that I worked. I remember one of the best gun. Well, the same shop that you and I worked at, or that you're working at right now. The guy that taught me everything I know about guns. He was Japanese, and he was in the Coast Guard. He knew so much about weapons, and I learned so much from him. He also had his graduate degree in history, so he was a great guy. But the then one of the other guys I worked with is like he was Korean, and he taught me a lot about guns. And for some reason, I think you want to talk about stereotypes. Asian people are obsessed with like high-end guns. Like
hmm
they will drop some serious clout. Like your buddy with the Arsenal. Um,
Yeah.
that's a nice gun, dude.
Yeah.
And the guy I told you I sold my Sega, right?
No. Why didn't you call
I
me?
sold. I it was just like it was one of the things that was last minute. I sold my Sega. What, you were interested in it?
Dude, I mean, I would have definitely fielded an offer to you.
I
God.
I well, so I didn't think about that. I That's true.
You're buying my drink now, dude.
Yeah, I owe you that one. Um, I'll tell you what. I'll throw you some green tip ammo. I've been having pretty good luck finding some green tips.
Dude, friggin'
Um,
honestly, I bet. Well, actually, okay, so not to change subjects real quickly, but I bet over at Academy, I bet green tip ammo probably hasn't sold as often as other types of 5.56 or 2 has. Probably because you
because
can't shoot
nobody
it at.
knows it.
Well, people who actually know things though will probably say, well, we can't shoot that at like a indoor range, right? So,
Mhm.
so they have to go to like an outdoor range. So, like for example, like Carter's in Spring or Hot Wells in Cypress,
You don't have to go to
American
Hot
Shooting
Wheels to get
Centers.
shot there.
Yeah, it's- dude. We'll talk about Hot Wheels later on. We got,
That one never something. You will get shot at Hot Wells.
dude. I've been there. I went there almost 2 years ago. I haven't been back
Was it a
since.
mind? Was it a mind-blowing experience? You're just walking in the parking lot. Man, this is a fun place. Boom, your head gets blown off.
I should be
Dude,
laughing at that, dude. I'm sorry. That's
no, I
so
mean,
bad.
He was a father, but dude, he got his head blown off in the
Dude,
parking lot by an employee.
you know, around Christmas time and like Thanksgiving, people will go on Hot Wheels Google review. They'll give them a
Oh
one-star
yeah.
review and tell them that because of y'all, a man isn't celebrating this holiday season with his family.
That's hilarious. Yeah, I remember that, dude. Yeah, it's been a minute, man. But dude, yeah, what the story was is like some kid was sighting in a rifle and like one there and like he just pointed it and pulled the trigger and blam,
Yeah,
dude. There was
dude. Apparently the muzzle was like pointed towards a window in that big old T building they have out there.
mm-hmm.
Literally, dude. Once in a lifetime shot. The odds of that happening are literally less than 1%.
Yeah.
But it still
Not gonna
happened.
take my chance though.
Exactly. And again, that's on him for not knowing, 4 firearm safety rules, right? Be aware
Mm-hmm.
of where your muzzle's pointed, fingers straight as well as off the trigger.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not that hard. Assume that every gun is
No,
loaded also. The fact that he didn't clear it while sighting it in, I mean, idiot. I mean, straight up.
ridiculous. But it's just complacency, man. Like
It
the
really is,
most
yes.
dangerous thing is like you get too comfortable with your firearm, you get too comfortable with it. You're like, oh no, I know what I'm doing, and guess what? Your finger slips. You don't think about the weight of the trigger pull, and that's seriously that's how people end up being killed. You
Exactly.
know?
In fact, I mean, again, like, trigger pulls can definitely creep up on you too. Like, so, I told you before we started, um, I got, so I did a, full auto for a VIP over at
Mhm.
where I
Mhm.
work, and
Yeah.
so he also asked me if I could show his friend because basically he just kind of paid for his friend for the full autos to just shoot him. He asked me
Yeah.
if I could show his friend how to shoot his 500 Smith and Wesson Magnum, dude.
Oh my lord.
So this dude, this sucker literally looks the exact same that you see on like just like Getty images. just like it's like an 8-inch barrel,
8-inch barrel. Yeah.
like like maybe 6 at the minimum. It has a compensator at the end, and it
Which
has
doesn't
literally
help.
the thickest rubber grips I ever felt in my life. So I'm like, all
Mhm.
right, boss. So here's how it goes. You know, you gotta basically dominant hand right here, try to get a firm grip on that, and then after that, go ahead and bring your support hand over. Cross your thumbs because this sucker has is a chonky round. Okay, dude, freaking the VIP member, he pulls out a baggie of 5 rounds of 500 Smith and Wesson, 500 grain, dude. I show it to
That's
his friend. I'm
huge.
like, this is a chonky ass round. So be ready for your wrist to start hurting. So basically, I'm like, all right. So basically, go ahead whenever you're ready. Cock this hammer back, and I went ahead and did. I got that grip again, dude. Literally,
Mhm.
dude, you could sneeze on that trigger. Boom, dude. I fired one round, just boom, just like this, dude, and friggin', dude. He was telling me how he went to shoot at some like FUD range in like Tomball,
Yeah.
and literally he was like the RSO tried to show my friend how to shoot this, and the RSO at that range literally got a big old cut on his forehead because his
Oh my
support
lord.
hand let go of the gun and the whole muzzle came back and hit him in the forehead, dude. I was like, dude, not like this. Like, do you not know what you're doing? Like, how are you an RSO if you don't know what this is? Like you and I have shot freaking homeboys, freaking Deeg over at our last job, right? Like,
Mhm.
dude, freaking great gun by the way, to shoot just for fun. But honestly, it's a piece of shit. But
I mean, it has its purpose, but like
it does,
one
yes.
percent of the people, 1% of the people who are gonna buy that gun will actually use it for its intended purpose. If you're like a fishing guide in Alaska, or if you're gonna go to the bush in like South Central Africa, then yeah, take a 500. But if you just want one to buy one, I mean, yeah, but I don't see the purpose of having those 50 caliber bullets. You know, like the Beagles or the 500s. You know what I mean?
50 Action Express is pretty bearable to shoot. I mean, I've shot it
Yeah, it's
one-handed
nice.
too, but
That's
honestly,
fun.
a 500 Smith& Wesson, I would never shoot that one-handed.
No,
Dude,
I
I'd
don't know.
I'd get dude honestly straight up, I'd probably get a hairline fracture in my wrist. It just
That's
freaking
bad.
boom and just like your freaking wrist is already like freaking like canted and shit, broken.
Mhm.
Freaking hairline fracture on like your inner bone or whatever, and it hurts, it sucks. But basically, honestly, any sort of like 50 caliber round for a handgun, I mean, you better be hunting like elk with like handgun hunting season if that's even a thing. Like
Mm-mm.
like 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 you and I both know like in certain states there's like black powder season, and
Yeah.
then there's just like just like plain Jane season where people can just shoot like whatever they want. I mean, if there is
Yeah.
a season where it's just like strictly just handgun hunting, where literally you have a scope mounted on the Picatinny rail on top of a Desert Eagle,
Mhm.
then I mean that's fine, I
Actually, you know,
guess.
I have a picture of my mom shooting my cousin's 500 Smith and Wesson. I kid you not, dude. Like my mom, my family out in North California. Um, North California it's a fun place, man. It's nothing like South California, but
I
my
bet, yeah,
mom, yeah, it's just like piney woods. It's beautiful,
yeah,
but my
like
family,
Big Red, that tree, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, actually, so that's where my That's where my grandmother lived, and I have aunts and uncles that live out over there, and some cousins, and they were. My mom was visiting that side of my family right before my grandmother passed away, and she was shooting one of my cousins 50 AEs, man, or 500 Smith and Wessons, but they're nice. Um,
Yeah.
but so let's steer back to course.
Yeah, yeah.
So Black Lives Matter. Honestly, man, I am glad that people are having these conversations. I think you and I both know that. I mean, to me, it's one of those things. Like I don't view Black Lives Matter as a terrorist movement like the way some people on the right do. I think that let's just treat people the way we want to be treated and acknowledge that some people have been marginalized by our society and by you know ridiculous laws like the war on drugs, which, let's face it, is just a war on poor people. um
Yeah.
so for me, like, I support Black Lives. I think that we all have friends that are black, and for me, it's like, hey, man, what's you have to. I view it as standing with the right on the right side of history, and as somebody who dedicates my time to history, it's like, how will we be judged? You know, um, but at the same time, you have to walk the walk. I mean, like,
Exactly. Yes.
there's so many other things that you could raise, awareness about. Like, dude, the fact that our iPhones are built by Chinese workers, in working in sweatshops. The fact that the American government is bombing, Yemeni, you know, third world country civilians, people living on $1 a day. Um, for what? Stability in the Middle East? Like, we should, the way my views on, let's look at Black Lives Matter. Like, yeah, Black lives do matter, but let's also look at ourselves and what we're doing as a society, how we are oppressing minorities, we are oppressing people in third world countries by our, you know, almost imperialistic views, man, of, trying to preserve peace in the Middle East. And, um, you know, it's just, I think that I don't want to say all lives matter, because that's just a very cliche thing to say. But, like, dude, we need to reevaluate where we stand as a society, because the stuff that we're doing is wrong. We shouldn't be bombing third world countries. We should just focus on ourselves. We should focus on our neighbors. Try to take care of us. Try to take care of ourselves, and get out of these wars that we have no business being in.
I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree. This is one of the reasons why. I mean, so if you gave me an option back on Super Tuesday, Ray, to basically, you told me that I couldn't sit in the Republican line and I had to go to the Democratic line. I mean, I would have casted a vote for Tulsi Gabbard. She
Dude, she was amazing.
she literally, from hearing her talk on Joe Rogan and hearing her message about getting out of these regime change wars, that's what she called it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Literally just getting out of that, stop associating our basically stop sticking our nose into things where they don't belong. I
Mm-hmm.
absolutely agree. I 100% agree. We kind of need to be selfish. I mean, for some people
Well, sure.
that may sound bad for some people, but as a country, I mean, when it comes to you voting, you should be selfish. Like, you should
Yes.
absolutely have your own interests in mind, not interests of like, oh, my friend is black, I should vote for this guy because he believes Black Lives Matter. No, you should be selfish, my dude. Is this candidate going to help you economically and also increase your standards of living?
Mm-hmm.
If it's yes for one or the other, then you should probably cast your vote for said candidate, right? You should totally be
Mm-hmm.
selfish whenever you're voting. I'm
Absolutely, because
I'm
that.
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go
No,
ahead.
no, you. I mean, we should, because we should be selfish, because it's like there are times when it is okay to be selfish, because you have to think about yourself. You have to think about your family, and you have to think about what the long term effects are going to be of this. Of what of what they're going to put in place.
Yes. And so, like, whenever I've spoken to you many times about how I am basically a single voter, I'm huge on the Second Amendment. I'm gonna be selfish. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're red, blue, purple, green. I mean,
Hmm.
literally, if you say in your basically like political outline that you will abolish the NFA your first day in office, you have my vote. If you say in that political outline that you will basically get rid of the Gun Control Act, you have my vote. Literally,
Hmm.
it's just that simple. If someone says in their political outline that they believe the Second Amendment should be interpreted as is, that all gun laws
Hmm.
are infringements, you have my vote. Because I
Right.
care about personal liberties, I care about both civil liberties and civil rights. And
Hmm.
the fact that we have a law in the books that says you are taxing a right, the NFA is putting a $200 tax your right to basically have a firearm in a certain configuration. Whenever we've had judicial reviews in courts literally say that you cannot tax a right via poll tax,
Hmm.
why do we still have this law on the books?
No.
But
And
but
here's the
but
thing,
that's a
man.
completely different subject though in general. So when it comes though
Yeah, I mean, like,
to like again being
sorry.
selfish as like a country though, we should be. And basically what you said in regards to like essentially getting African Americans basically out of poverty. First step is getting out of all these wars. Like
Hmm.
literally just let's not put a huge amount of money into the military. Let's begin to focus on other things like for example, freaking Freedman's Bureau back in the 1800s, dude. That was literally a
Yeah,
social program.
it
And
was.
and and if we had something just a little bit similar to that, and for in terms of getting, it doesn't matter who you are, in terms of getting people out of poverty,
Mhm.
then it's going to be a dramatic change in this country, dude.
See, but that's the thing,
Dramatic.
man. Like, I I think that, like, if you want to get really into the fringes, I mean, look at why they killed Martin Luther King. Not because he was preaching about civil rights, because after the civil rights movement, he was planning on going down to Appalachia, and he was going to start a campaign. He was going to start a war on poverty. And I think what people don't want to see is people don't want to see the poor elevating themselves, because yeah, you can come to this country and you can become a self-made millionaire, and I think that's a beauty of this country. But if you have a general, uprising of people saying we're no longer going to take this, I don't think the 1% would take that well. I think that we have to really see about and like here's the thing, like reparations. I am for reparations, but not in the traditional sense of giving somebody money. I don't think giving somebody money works. I think that we should rebuild communities. I'm not just talking about black communities. I'm talking about Ohio, the Rust Belt. These white majority towns where industry has left, where the steel mills have shut down, where coal mines have shut down. Let's reinvest in those communities the same way we're going to reinvest in a black black low class society, community. Like it needs to be done. There needs to be community centers. They need to have sex education. They need to have job skills. All these things that hey, you're not going to get rich, but here's how you can have a livable life. Don't turn to crime. Be a welder, work in carpentry, learn a trade, and build yourself up. Because
Exactly.
if you look at like the rate of black home ownership in this country, it is at an all-time low. It hasn't been this low since segregation. That's since the 1960s, man. And that's sad. Like that
Yeah.
really is sad. So for me, when I think of reparations, I think that we need to invest in the poor communities of America. The blacks, the whites, Hispanics, we need to change that. And if that's socialism, call it socialism. I call it taking care of Americans. I think that that is where our government should step in and should invest in the well-being of the people. Because I mean, it's no different than you have. a guy, a poor white guy living in a trailer than you have a poor black guy living in an apartment. Poverty is poverty and pain is pain. And if you look at the rates of poverty versus success rates in education, it's not going to work, man. They both have high numbers of teenage pregnancies, single motherhood, drug addiction, crime. It's all the same. The real war should be on poverty. You know, and,
Yes.
and and there is race involved in that. I'd be an idiot. I'd be a fool to say that race is not involved in that. But the real crime that we need to fix is poverty.
Yes.
You know. So,
100%. I agree.
you
I mean, we see it firsthand. I mean, like, dude, whenever you go to the U of H, do you take 45?
hell yeah, dude. Like seriously.
Dude, do you see the tents on the median?
Yes,
Yeah,
dude. Absolutely. Like that is a shame, man.
it
Like it
is.
really is. And you know what's even worse, man? How many of those guys down there are veterans? You know?
That's a
How
good
many of those
question. That's a very good
it's,
question.
it's a great yeah, I mean think about it. How many of those people down there are veterans? How many people and that's a bro, you want to talk about another thing. We haven't even addressed the issue of what the percentage of people who are on the streets, mental illness and drug addiction go hand in hand.
Yes.
People who are schizophrenic or people who have basically been forgotten by the system, they let them loose, and what do? They try to self medicate by drinking cheap rot gut whiskey or smoking meth or crack, and those are forgotten people, man. Those are
Yes.
people that nobody thinks about.
Yes, that's
It's
actually that's actually crazy you brought that up too, because so recently I finished a series on Netflix called Mindhunter.
oh dude, I love Mindhunter, man.
Dude, that was a really good show. I thoroughly enjoyed that show actually. So
Really.
so whenever you talk about, like schizophrenia and then like mental illness and stuff like that, I mean, we kind of saw it on that show, right? Especially whenever they
Hmm.
interview guys like Ed Kempner, right? How did his mental
Yeah.
illness kind of came about? His abuse from his mother. His fact his mother didn't want him. His mother wanted a
Hmm.
girl. His mother
Yeah.
literally just kind of shoved him off, and basically he kind of, I mean, his brain was literally wired in a sense where because his mom wasn't, gifted with a girl and got a boy instead, that he should kind of
Right.
be like a girl, right? I mean, the
Yeah.
same thing with that one guy who was the one guy was obsessed with shoes. I forget his name. That one guy in Oregon.
Oh, Bruno's.
Yeah, yeah,
Bruno's, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
That was that scene where he jerks off
yeah.
on the shoe. Oh my lord.
Dude, I cracked up when I saw that. I was like, dude, like literally, you're talking to like two people, and there's a freaking security guard and the freaking lock, and he's freaking has to like turn away and shit.
And he's like, oh, let me just jerk off on this shoe real quick. It's like, dude, I feel bad for the prison guard. If I was the prison guard, like, oh hell no, I'm not touching this. I'm out, dude.
Dude, hell yeah, dude. But honestly, dude, we should totally talk about this too because I'm fascinated with like cold cases and like serial killers. We'll actually write this
Hmm.
down for a episode later on because,
Let's do
dude,
it
I would
next
love
one.
to talk about like the Black Dahlia, friggin' Jack the Ripper,
Hmm.
Zodiac. Um, I mean, hell, I mean, even people, even known serial killers that were caught. So, like for example, like Edmund Kemper. We can even talk about like Charles Manson, killer by proxy, right? Dude, I would love to
Bro, I
talk
mean,
about that.
well, you saw season 2, man. Like you had
Yes,
uh the Candyman here in Houston.
yes.
Um, so dude, I there's a great article. I'm gonna send it to you. It's Texas Monthly. I love Texas Monthly. They talk about Sunny Acres. Basically that's like north of it's like right above the Heights.
Oh
It's
yeah.
really it's a black yeah. So basically there was a guy. These black women were being killed, and in the process of trying to find the killer, they didn't catch one. They caught three guys that were going around killing black women who were prostitutes. And it's like the fact that um, anyway, it's a great article about serial killers here in Houston. But honestly, dude, so like my my plans and I kind of have hesitation in saying it, but because like I want to see it. I want to see it through. I want to take time to about write about these murders that happened in my hometown. The history of murders in South Texas. There was this 1971. There was these two girls that were murdered and murdered in a really brutal way. Like they were choked, they were strangled, and they were sodomized with like tree branches and stuff like that. And their bodies were dumped on the river. And they were like 16 and 17. And I want to write about that. And it went unsolved for a very long time. And I'm fascinated with the idea of true crime. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, that's something that we could definitely talk about after today. But
Yes, excited for
but
and
we go
I
off
put it
topic a
in.
lot, dude. But honestly, dude, whenever we go off topic, we're still basically being relevant in terms of what we're talking about. So I honestly
Yeah,
don't care. So,
yeah,
but in general though, so like going back to like talking about, you and I seeing, the tents on the median on 45, dude. I mean, dude, honestly, dude, I've seen some big ass tents on the median, dude. Friggin', I don't know what they be doing to like hustle to like get a big old tent. That's probably cost like $50. But I mean, they must be doing something right to get a tent like that, dude.
I mean, I read an article one time about how it says it costs a fortune to be homeless. This guy was cracked. The website cracked. This guy was talking about how he was homeless, but it costs a lot to get home. Like for example, he was talking about how he was trying to afford, to save for an apartment. But the bad thing is that number one, he was waiting on a list to get he was waiting on a list to get community housing, but the list was like 6 months long, and he had to be sober, and it's just a ridiculously long list. So not just that, but he was trying to do it on his own, so he had to save the first month's rent, last month's rent, and the security deposit, and that's like several $1,000s. And the fact that you have to try and save that's a lot of money, even if
Yeah.
you are making a good job. So that's one thing. It's like the people who are living out there, man. Some of them have just nowhere to go, and people have turned their backs on them. And honestly, that's one thing that if we're talking about Black Lives Matter, if we're talking about um, societal issues, let's talk about that, man, because it shouldn't just end there with Black Lives Matter. It shouldn't. These conversations as a nation shouldn't just stop there. It should stop with the fact that we have children being locked up in cages for crossing the border, which I don't care what your beliefs are on immigration. If you believe that Mexicans should stay in Mexico or whatever, I'm gonna say it is not right to lock up somebody in a jail for just it's not right to do that. And it's not an issue with Trump because Obama was doing it for a long time, but just because he was, Obama, people didn't focus on that. It's been
Exactly. Yeah.
going on for a very long time. And that's something that us as a society we need to say this is not right.
Yeah. I mean, gotta call a spade, right? So,
Absolutely.
so I agree there. But in general, though, in terms of also the conversation that we've been hearing a lot too, whenever it came down to these protests, riots, and focus of police brutality, is now lately it's been a lot about certain monuments, specifically Confederate monuments here in the United
Oof.
States. Um, and then even so, like honestly, right? Like I don't know if you saw this or not. I saw this on Twitter. You know that there's a town in like Canada that has a Nazi monument?
A Confederate monument?
No, no, no. There's a town in Canada that has a Nazi monument that is literally dedicated to Adolf Hitler and his like squadron of like SS soldiers. And it actually got vandalized. It got vandalized recently. That's how I actually knew about this. Let me see if Twitter still has it. So
Yeah.
it got vandalized, and the town that it's in Canada, according to basically the, I guess for lack of a better term, because I don't know what to call Canada, but basically their federal laws, um, basically because it was a monument, it's actually being investigated as a hate crime through their laws. So okay, so
That's hilarious. That's awesome.
dude. Okay, so here it is. So the vandalism of a Nazi monument in Ontario is being investigated as a hate crime. A monument in Oakville, Ontario, commemorating those who served under Adolf Hitler in the 14th SS Division, was recently graffitied
Jesus Christ.
with the words Nazi War Monument. The incident, which police say appeared to target an identifiable group, is being investigated as a hate-motivated crime. So, I
So
don't
you, you
know,
you hate Nazis?
dude. I mean, I don't know how that monument got there. Honestly, you know, sign of the times, right?
Right.
Maybe, maybe that was the mood back in like 1945. Who knows? That's how
Mhm.
Canada was. But
Mhm.
I mean, once again, you gotta call a spade here, right? So it got vandalized. It got spray painted on. Basically, it says Nazi War Monument. But I don't know why that monument was ever erected there in the first place.
You'd be
But
surprised, man. Honestly, that there were a ton of Germans. I don't know, maybe some Argentinians.
dude, yeah, I
Uh,
mean, I was gonna say I know about certain Nazis going to Argentina. I mean, like literally, I was watching a episode of Joe Rogan one time, and this one guy was like a Nazi expert about. He was trying to
mhm.
determine if like Adolf like actually killed himself through cyanide, and
Oh
he
yeah,
literally went to a certain part in Argentina, and literally in that certain part, it was literally a bunch of blonde white people who literally
yeah. Mhm.
went up to you and went "Hello" in German. They literally spoke German in a certain part of Argentina,
Mhm.
dude. So,
Yeah. Well, so not just Argentina, like all over South America and Central America. Like, so for example, when my sister was in college, she babysat for this Peruvian couple. Their last name was Damnert, so Damnert, and blonde hair, blue eyes. They spoke Spanish, they spoke German, they spoke English. And I asked him, I was like, hey, so what's the deal? Like, you guys are Peruvian, but you don't look Peruvian. It's like, well, our 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 grandfathers came from Germany. They were political refugees. I'm like, oh yeah, political refugees, man. That's a nice way of putting it. Yeah,
that's a
they were
nice way
great
of
people,
putting it.
man. They were great people. Not gonna lie, but yeah, dude. I mean, so Confederate monuments, man. So it's a very complicated issue, and people don't necessarily understand the history of these Confederate monuments.
And
But let me just break it. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. So, okay, by you saying that, I kind of am one of them. I mean, I don't know when they were mostly erected. I mean, we kind of had this conversation through text how they were or basically erected during the Lost Cause.
Yes.
But and then I kind of talked to you about that too. I mean, I knew like even after the end of the actual Civil War. I mean, I knew from especially taking a recent summer class and taking another class this fall at the U of H. Um, basically, I mean, I could tell you from just reading how like Jefferson Davis's role in terms of being viewed almost like a messiah, almost right, a hero
Mhm.
during that
Yeah.
cause, and he was the president of the actual Confederacy, right? So,
Right.
so again, kind of going back on it, I am one of those people though who really, I mean, I know a little bit about the Lost Cause, but I don't know about the monuments that were erected during that time. So, if you
Okay.
want, you can basically have the floor. You could just talk about it.
I won't tell you too much. Like, I'm not going to bore you with it.
Yeah,
Let me
yeah,
just give you the lowdown with you. So, Civil War ended, right? 1865, Confederacy lost Appomattox Courthouse, right? So, from 1865 to 1877, there was a period known as Federal Reconstruction. That was
yes,
when the Union physically occupied the South. Union troops were down there restoring order, and the whole idea of Reconstruction was to make sure that the government was up and running again, a constitutional government, rebuild the South, and do it like this. So during that time, there was a pretty strong, civil rights movement. There were actually black congressmen, there were black sheriffs, this and that, and it was a time when they were trying to rebuild the South into what it should have been. Now it failed. It ended in 1877, and as a result, the people who were there, the Southerners, they saw, a lot of Northerners had come in and taken advantage of the basically reap the rewards of the war, which is, what they call carpetbaggers. So there was a lot of tension, and there was a group, the Ku Klux Klan, which was their whole idea. They originally these guys, I wouldn't necessarily call them, like think of them as like frat boys, honestly. Just guys that wanted to get together and just like pull pranks on black people. Their main idea was like ride around, terrorize black people, keep them from voting. And that was a pretty normal thing to do, and that happened. But right around the turn of the century, once the Northerners left and you had the Southerners, start to look around and say, well, hey, it's still pretty bad around here. Like, we need to, kind of turn things around and like, why did we fight for? And this is when you still had, Confederate veterans around. And it's like, they started talking about how, well, we fought for a genteel way, and we fought for a war that was righteous, and the Northerners had every right, did not have any right to come down here. So they started publishing memoirs, like Confederate generals started publishing memoirs of why they fought. And then the big thing that happened was in the early 1900s, the NAACP, I think it was 1909, the NAACP is formed, and Booker T. Washington, the founder, they started getting around and they started preaching the idea of like, hey, us black people, we have rights. And it was right around that time that Confederate monuments started being built. And then if you see the big thing that's really interesting, if you see the movie Birth of a Nation, that honestly, you just can't describe the importance of Birth of a Nation. But Birth of a Nation really just portrays it's a glorious way of portraying the South. Like you have the Southern gentleman who is trying to protect his family from the rape of the North. You have the blood savage blacks. They're all black. It's really obscenely racist, man. Like there's just one scene where this one woman is being chased up a mountain, and the black guy, well, it's not a black guy, but it's a guy in blackface, and he's like, just like, he's got like these big bulging eyes, and he just wants to rape her. So the woman jumps off a cliff and commits suicide rather than being raped by a black man. So what they decide to do is they decide to dress up as a Klansman, and they decide to save the white woman, the white womanhood. And when that movie came out, man, it was, first of all, it was the first real epic movie. Movies up until that point were just, 5 minutes flicker shows. And what happened is, as soon as this movie came out, people just started going crazy. They started seeing the their grandfathers would tell them about the riding in Klansmen riding south, and they saw that that's a beautiful thing, and they decided to start erecting monuments. They started to writing more about the Confederate causes of war, and that's really when the causes of the war got confused, and a lot of these monuments were set up by the Daughters of the Confederacy. Daughters of the Confederacies were a lot like the Daughters of the Revolution. Basically, the Daughters of the Confederacy were Southern socialites. They were debutantes. And they basically set up these Confederate monuments in remembrance of the Confederate soldiers who died. Not necessarily. They set them up, and a lot of these will actually say for the preservance of white supremacy. There are some of them that will say that on there. So if you look at when they were set up, if you look at when they were set up in three waves. They were set up in they were set up in the early 1900s, the 1920s, and the 1950s. It's one of the three main waves. Like if you look at the maps of when they were set up, it's like three peaks. 1910s because of the rise of the civil rights movement in the early 1900s, and with the rise of Birth of a Nation. The 1920s, when you have blacks returning back from the First World War, and the 1950s, when you have blacks returning back from World War II and the birth of the civil rights movement.
Yes.
So, with that being said, these monuments were set up as an erector to glorify a story that was not necessarily so. My thoughts on Confederate monuments are people don't understand history. People think that they are just statues of generals, not necessarily. Like these statues were put up as a reminder, hey, Blackie, this is a reminder for you. This is what the past was. Do I have a problem with them? You know what, man? I don't think a public place is a place to commemorate the losing side. Because you have to understand, Confederates, are not Confederates were willing to kill Americans. And they killed 300,000 Union soldiers, and they ultimately killed 700,000. 700,000 soldiers died in the war. There's no estimate to know the real number of civilians who died in the Civil War, but we have to understand that the Confederacy was ultimately fighting to preserve slavery. So many people would argue to the death that the Civil War was not about slavery, but you just can't argue with it. The sheer fact that the economics don't lie, the numbers don't lie. People say that it was about taxation. People say that it was about preserving Southern culture. It was an economic war. The economics behind it was slavery. Slavery upheld the Southern system and it also upheld the Southern hierarchy. I mean, you could be a poor, dead, beat white person, but you were still not a slave. So you still had that rank above a slave. You know.
That's very
Um,
interesting how you brought up the economic parts of Civil War because you are right. I mean, we can't forget about. I mean, essentially, one of the kind of a grand plan of us of the South was King Cotton, right? King
yes,
Cotton, where
absolutely.
where literally they basically had this plan where we could just strong arm not only the Union, but we could also strong arm European countries and basically tell them, well, we're not going to import our cotton unless if you support our cause. So,
Absolutely. I mean,
so, so that actual implication of the economic issues right there, I mean, that's probably the biggest one. And honestly, I mean, when you look at it from that standpoint, I mean, that's probably their ace in the hole for lack of a better term, right?
mhm.
Because that's literally what churned their economy. It's not like in the Union where they had industry and where they could also not only with like actual like factories and stuff like that too, but they could
Mhm.
also have the immense amount of updated railroads that were in much better condition compared to what they were in the South and
Mhm.
being able to transport whatever they made in the north to from basically anywhere from so like for example New England all the way to
Mhm.
California. They had that
Mhm.
ability to do that because of their significant advantages that they had technologically via their improved railroad system, right? Whereas
Mhm. Now,
the South basically just had ports, basically just load cotton onto a boat and then wait 3 months for the cotton to get to like Europe, right? So,
right.
so
So, I'm sorry,
basically
guys.
the amount of time that you're comparing between a railroad where was it on average? It's like a week to get from like New England to like California on those railroads back then
Mhm.
to where it's taking like 3 months for you to basically go around Florida and then all the way up into Great Britain or like Portugal or Spain, right? That's
Yeah.
that's
So
that's a huge
the
difference.
way they would, the way they would do it, and it's very interesting the way the Confederacy worked. The way Texas worked in the Civil War was Texas was on the border with Mexico. So there's a subset of Confederate history called the Cotton Wars. So, the South Texas Wars that were fought over, because what the Confederacy would do is they would smuggle the cotton across into Mexico because Mexico was a sovereign country. The Union couldn't blockade the South. But I have right here one of my I've pulled up one of my old documents that I had about cotton production. So, like in 1791, there were 889 bales produced in um, in a year. 1795, the year that the cotton gin was invented, there were 28,000. So in the span of 4 years, you go from 900 bales to 28,000 bales. Then by 1795 to around 1860, at the onset of the Civil War, it jumps from 28,000 bales to 5.7 million bales of cotton being produced in in the in the South. What does that translate to? Is that by 1860, 2/3 of all the world's cotton was produced in the South. Now, by the 1860s, the southern cotton crop was 48 times more than the federal budget of the United States. So the economics just do not lie.
Hmm.
It was an economic war. Cotton was king. The fact that there were 4 million slaves, and the 4 million slaves were worth about, in those days were worth $3 billion. The slave market in 1860 was $3 billion. It just doesn't lie, man. Like you can't tell me that it wasn't about slavery, because you have this amount of money, you have a dedicated economy based on slavery, and you also have the hierarchy of owning slaves. I mean, like, if you owned a slave, like, the more slaves you owned, it's like, bro, it was a drip, man. Like, you had more slaves, you had more money. You it was just it really was that. Like, I mean, it was an economic war on slaves.
Yeah.
People want to argue about that, dude. Honestly, history is not something that is peaceful. It's not something that is, you can't hide it, man, and you shouldn't deny it.
Yeah, it's definitely not biscuits and gravy, dude. I mean, it's rough. It's basically like gripping as tight as you can around the stem of like a rose, right? Like those thorns are
Hmm.
literally just basically just piercing your skin, you're bleeding. That's literally how that
Yeah.
is. Um, and I mean, going back to what you said though about, status of slave owners, I mean, not only did it also show, that, you had basically money, but I mean, it
Hmm.
also showed that, you had immense amount of land.
Yeah.
And that's how, whenever we go back to the roots of this country with how people voted, you needed to own land. You needed to prove that you owned land to vote. So if you had literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of acres and hundreds of slaves to go with it too, that will definitely prove your status to everyone around you, right?
Oh yeah. I
And
mean, like, this was the 1% back in the day.
exactly. And
You know.
and then I mean, going back though to where we're talking about during like Reconstruction afterwards, we definitely talk about like how the Union basically was sort of basically a enforcement of basically making sure that there was no discrimination, right? Like basically allowing black people to vote
Hmm.
15th once their uh 15th Amendment rights
13th Amendment,
passed. Um,
13, 14, 15.
and then this is a topic that we could probably dig into later on also, but it's interesting how there was also a lot of women in the 1800s as well who were part of the abolitionist movement, but also part of their own suffrage movement as well,
Hmm.
who literally were against the ratification of the 15th Amendment because it didn't include them.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of the
Like,
women suffragists were actually anti-abolitionist, man. It's kind of crazy.
yes, like if you look at, I believe it was Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth
Hmm.
Cady Stanton, they they were against the ratification of the 15th because it did
Hmm.
include women, and they didn't live to see the 19th Amendment pass. But
No.
but whenever you go into like other notable figures, like for example Lucy Stone, she was all for it because she knew that with the passing of these three amendments, that basically it would be a win for their cause because now they can promote their cause even further by saying that if you gave a black man a right to vote, then now it's time for a woman to be able to have a right to vote now, right? So it's
Yeah.
all, it's basically a domino effect. Now,
Hmm.
is Susan B. Anthony and Stanton, are they right about basically the 15th Amendment kind of going against their wishes and their cause? Yeah, they probably are. But
Yeah.
but at the same time though, whenever we saw how with these monuments how it just kind of folds into one, and it's interesting how you were talking about those three waves in the 1900s, 1920s, and then the 1950s. It's interesting how whenever I heard you say 1950s, I immediately thought that one of the reasons why that more statues would probably get erected is probably because of the passing of certain court cases, like for example Brown
Yeah.
v. Board,
Absolutely.
Brown v. Board of Education. That's probably the biggest one. And then also the fact that literally there was that one little black girl in like first grade, that one notable picture where she's literally walking basically hip and hip with a National Guard like guy, right?
She's
In that
still
one
alive,
school.
dude.
Is she?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, her name is ironic. It sounds funny. Her name is Ruby Bridge, like Ruby Ridge, but
Oh, yeah. Actually, yeah, you know what?
Ruby
You know what? I actually remember
Ruby
that.
Bridge. She's alive, man. She's still alive. She's actually not that old. She's like in her 60s.
Yeah, I believe that. I mean,
Yeah.
that was
I mean,
that was around the time.
it was
Yeah.
a. Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I mean, it was a turbulent time, man. Like, eh, it's not easy, like, coming to terms with, like, the fact that we owned slaves. Um, but people just don't want to talk about that, and that's cool, man. Like, that's kind of what I do. Like, like I talk about history. Just don't get uncomfortable when we talk about it. Like, it's one of those things. Like, it happened. There's nothing that we can do from it but learn.
Exactly.
What can it teach us? It teaches us that we are capable of immense cruelty, but we are also capable of bettering ourselves as a society. I think that my closing thoughts on that are that it shaped us who we are. I mean, are we still dealing with the ramifications of slavery? Hell yes,
Oh yeah.
dude. Like, seriously. I mean, if you look at, for example, the in American history, in North American history, if you look at the beginning of slavery, which some people say is 1719, which is actually wrong. The first African slaves arrived in St. Augustine, Florida, about 100 years before they quote unquote arrived in Virginia. People forget about Florida, which they should because it's Florida. But people forget about St. Augustine, Florida, and if you look at from that time or ignore that time, look at 1619 to the 1860, then the 1865, then the Civil Rights Voting Act of 1964. Black people have only been free for 57 years, or 58 years actually. 58 years of freedom. And it's one of those things like, bro, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. But my closing thoughts are that we have come a long way in terms of us as a society. But, bro, there's a lot of work that needs to be done.
Yes. I absolutely agree. And
Yeah.
just to kind of go back though on the monuments, I mean, I've told you already. I really don't care what happens to them. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a piece of rock, right? I
It
mean,
really
I
is.
mean, if you really wanted to like try your best to like take it down, literally just get like a jackhammer or maybe like pour some like sulfuric acid on it, dude. Watch it just melt, all right? mean,
You,
I
you,
mean, you could do anything like that, right? So,
mm-hmm.
so again, at the end of the day, it is just a rock that can be brought down pretty easy. Whatever happens to it, it happens, right? I mean, I think
Mm-hmm.
I think what we need to. Did you hear through similar circles that we're in about how protesters were probably going to go up to the Sam Houston Monument up in, I believe it's Huntsville?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were talking about doing that. Honestly, Sam Houston is a different character.
Yes.
He was anti-secessionist, but he was pro repatriations of slaves to Africa. So he's a complicated character, man.
Mhm.
I
Um.
love Sam Houston though.
Oh yeah. I mean, for you and I, like especially since now you're probably going to become a history teacher, and
Hmm.
just knowing about him and how notable he is as a figure in Texas history. Him, Stephen F. Austin, Jim Bowie,
Mhm.
uh, Travis, like all those notable figures in Texas history. I mean, we just view them as like our own heroes, right? People who founded Texas
Yeah.
and ran Texas as a nation for a little bit before being annexed, right?
Yep.
So, but yeah, that was,
I just
dude,
I
that
have
was
4 words. 4 words for like people that want to come and tear down a statue of uh of Sam Houston. 4 words. Come and take it, man.
I agree. Come and take it, and we'll hoist that flag how like they hoisted up before. And
Hoist it, flag. Fly the
but
flag, dude.
but yeah. I mean, honestly, dude, if you also want to talk about too one day on an episode, we can definitely do that for sure. Texan history,
Yeah, that'd be dope.
because we can go way back, talk about the Native Americans that were here on Texas land, and
hmm
go into and like, so I can even bring up too. In fact, we can even discuss this offline. I can ask my dad to pull out the documents that we have of when my ancestors from Czechoslovakia came. So
That's right. You're because your dad's Czech, and that's so they probably came in like the 1800s, man. Because like that's when there was a
late 1800s.
yeah, yeah. That's
Um,
when the Czechs, Polacks, they came or Poles, whatever.
yeah, them
Um,
and some Germans as well. A lot of Germans actually came here way before World War.
dude, that's why like, you go to Fredericksburg. There's some old times that still speak
Oh
German there.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
And I also heard
I worked with this.
I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
I also heard that Oktoberfest was also A1 over. So
Yeah. Honestly, dude, like that's what I love about Texas history. Like, I worked with this one guy who was Polish. He had a funny accent, dude. And I asked him, I was like, man, you from like Louisiana? He's like, no, man, I'm from Stevensville, Texas. And I was like, dude, well, what's up with the accent, man? I was like, well, my grandparents were Polish, and he's an old timer. He's like, can you speak Pole? Can you speak Pole? I was like, no, I understand it, but my grandmother and my grandfather and my great grandfather and great grandmother, they couldn't speak a word of English and they spoke Polish, you know. But I mean, honestly, hey man, thank your ancestors for the beer,
yeah,
because
dude.
I cannot imagine a hot summer day without some vodka.
Dude, absolutely. In
Speaking of which, dude, I got some uh Buffalo Brewing. Um, I I got this one called Dreamsicle. I just picked it up from the random. It was random. I was like, oh, look cool. It's basically like a creamsicle beer. You know, like the popsicles,
wow.
like an orange creamsicle beer. It's actually pretty refreshing.
Dude, honestly, that sounds really good. Have you ever had ginger beer?
Yes, I love
Dude,
it, dude.
ginger beer is actually really good. In fact, whenever I went to Taste of Texas with some coworkers, the drink, I think it's called Russian Mule.
Oh yeah, Moscow Mule.
Yeah. We basically they have their own version over there. It's called Texas Mule, where they put
Mm-hmm.
Tito's handmade vodka with the ginger beer mixed in. But
Gotta be Tito's, man.
dude, it was phenomenal. Like honestly, it was really good. I thoroughly enjoyed that drink. They even put like a little like a little like Texas flag, kind of like how like for like Hawaii they put those little umbrellas in their drinks.
Yeah,
They
barely.
even put that in it too. They even brought out like a actual metal mug for you to drink it out
Yeah,
of.
the
Dude,
copper mugs. Yeah,
it was actually really good.
I'll take it.
In fact, even before we started the podcast tonight, whenever we were talking earlier, I have a few Angry Orchards
Well,
left. I actually really enjoy apple cider. Um,
dude, yeah, I like apple cider. I like the Red's Apple Ale.
Reds,
Anything
oh
that's
yeah,
like crispy, man, I'll take one.
yeah,
Um,
especially after a day like today too. Especially like, dude, I
yeah,
got back to my car, dude. I opened my door. I even had my window cracked, and literally just a heat wave just like hit me in the face, and it was like, holy, like
yeah,
having something like this in like the summertime, I'll take it all the time.
yeah.
But like
Seriously,
whenever, so like my mother and I we went to El Tiempo on Westheimer.
yeah, that's a classic one, dude.
Dude, Freaking, I had a Negro Modelo with a lime with my enchiladas,
Oof.
dude. Oh, dude. Cannot beat that, my dude.
No, Negro Modelo with a lime. That is God's nectar. I went to Jamaica Beach with my wife and my brother-in-law like 4 days ago, and that's when I bought the creamsicle. And I was just chilling on the beach, drinking some of that Crawford or the Buffalo Brewing. It's a good beer. I need to get some more. I don't know what I don't know which beer I'm gonna try next. Probably I love Crawford Bock, but right now it's like Crawford Bock. I feel like it's kind of like more like a wintry beer, because it's a little bit darker. I love citrusy right now, so I'll probably see what I can find. I love St. Arnold's Lawnmower. Can't beat
Yes.
that.
I thoroughly enjoy St. Arnold's also. Oktoberfest,
Hmm.
Christmas Ale, dude, the best beers they got right there. Um,
Well,
that,
I'm right down the road from Backview Brewing.
mhm.
They're like about a mile from where my wife and I are buying a house.
Dude, there's a lot of A1 like breweries here in Houston. We have like St. Arnold's,
Absolutely.
we have Karbach now, and then there's Shiner out in Shiner, Texas, right?
Hmm.
And then out
Eighth
out
Wondery.
close to where I live in the west side, close to Katy, there's a No Label Ridgeback, dude. Have you ever had that?
No, I haven't.
Dude, you gotta try it. It's a really good dark beer. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Um,
Yeah,
that I mean, we have a lot of really good breweries here. Um,
there are a ton of good breweries
but
here.
like honestly, dude, I really enjoy though from St. Arnold's like the Christmas ale. Shiner has Shiner Cheer. Shiner Cheer is really good Christmas time, dude. Dude, I
Hmm.
gotta, dude, friggin' whenever it's like Thanksgiving, dude, I gotta pick that up. I definitely have to.
I've got to get some. I definitely got to get like a nice. I don't know. Probably get a nice bourbon for Christmas. When I think of the holidays, I just think of a nice bourbon.
Friggin' Bullet Bourbon, my dude. Cannot beat Bullet
Or a
Bourbon.
bullet bourbon.
Um,
No.
and if you can find it, and obviously Blanton's, but honestly, at this point, I think if you ever want to get your hands on Blanton's, you probably have to special. Um,
Get you need to try you need to try I tried it with a um I like small batch 1765 small batch. I like I mean my favorite cheap one to go for is Buffalo Trace, and I definitely like the Bird Dog bourbon. I've been on a crave on that one. That one's really good.
dude, I honestly, I really prefer the smoothest from a lot of top shelf stuff, so that's one of the reasons why I really do like Bullet Bourbon. I went to Chamagacha on Westheimer also.
Yeah, the Japanese place.
No, no, it's Brazilian. It's just like Fogo.
Oh,
Yeah,
I went to Fogo this week for my 2 year anniversary. My wife was on the 13th.
ideally,
Yeah, I had Fogo. I love Fogo, dude.
dude. Freaking so Chamagacha, we we went there to celebrate a coworker's birthday. It was phenomenal, dude. Literally,
Yeah.
like we just flipped our card over to green, and they just started bringing out all these steaks, right? Literally,
Mhm.
dude. I think, dude, the best one I had was garlic sirloin, dude. Freaking medium rare,
Mhm.
dude. Holy
Yeah.
shit, life changing.
You
They
can't beat the picanha, dude.
they
I
brought
love
that
the
out,
picanha.
and then towards the end, dude, freaking my coworker spots this one guy. He's just holding this huge lump of beef rib, dude, and it was Wagyu beef, dude.
Oof,
It was life changing, Ray. Life
it's
changing.
amazing. Seriously, like that is what God wants you to eat.
Yes,
I went with my wife on so the 14th we went for our anniversary, and honestly like that's what we do. We love My wife loves Fogo. I love Fogo. I My favorite cut that they serve there is like it's the cheapest cut, but it's the bottom sirloin. It's like super fatty and it's really salty. But the picanha, dude, it's super like crispy. They get that nice crisp because the picanha is basically the ribeye cap. The ribeye cap has all the flavor, man. Forget the eye of the ribeye. The ribeye cap is like that nice muscle on the outside. Dude, they get it. And honestly, I don't mind paying like like the hundred. Like if my wife and I go, it's gonna be $100, like with tip and everything. I don't mind because I just love eating that steak.
Oh, dude. So over at Chamagacha, my bill was like with tip. It was like $1. And that was just for myself. Um I picked up my coworker's drink because it was his
Hmm.
birthday.
Yeah.
I so basically the whole dinner. So basically you can eat as much as you want for $50 during dinner
Hmm.
time. And then from there, I had two old fashions. So this is actually what I was going to transition to. It was I had two old fashions with Hennessy. That was my first time that I've had an old
Oof.
fashioned with a cognac. Dude,
Yeah.
good. I'm probably gonna do that
Hmm.
again for sure because personally, I do prefer like Tennessee whiskey. So personally, my favorite is Gentleman Jack for old
Yeah.
fashions.
Nice. It's nice.
But trying it with Hennessy though for the first time, that was life changing too.
Henny,
It
the
was
official
it
drink.
had it had a very smooth, almost like a cherry, like kind of like burst flavor in it.
Hmm.
But I think that was more so of how they may have actually mixed the bitters with it with a sugar cube. I think that's how they probably
Yeah.
did that.
It,
But basically, over at Chamagacha though, for me it was my two drinks, my coworker's drink, my dinner, and then I also had a dessert. I had a molten chocolate cake with ice cream. It was like 12
king,
bucks and it was so
king.
good, dude. I shared it with my coworker. It was his birthday, dude. He had his own thing brought out. I think he had Tres Leches, my dude. Dude, he devoured that so fast.
Dude, seriously, no man. Like I had that photo. Like I was sitting like a rock for like an hour afterwards. I was like, I went home. I was like, bro, don't talk to me. Um, Pho was great, man. I loved it.
Yeah.
But yeah. All right, man. I'm gonna call it quits for the night because
Yeah,
we got.
let's go ahead and close out the podcast real quick and then we'll talk offline for a second. So, in general though, dude, I
Yeah.
mean, really great talk. Uh, Definitely a few things to definitely keep in mind. Um, because again, I mean, as we kind of said earlier, I mean, we're always learning from our mistakes, right? Again,
Hmm.
talking about our past history, it's kind of like just grasping a whole entire thorn stem from like a rose, right? I mean,
Hmm.
it's definitely not, smooth butter. The thorns have been cut off. You're gonna feel uncomfortable. It's gonna hurt. It's gonna bleed. That's how it is. So,
Absolutely.
but yeah, let me go ahead and close this out right here. So,